Welcome back to Experience Points, a less formal, more laid-back sort of video where normally I talk about a bunch of video games that I've played a bit of but haven't finished yet, but today, instead, we're going to be taking a look at a book that I've read quite a bit of, but not the entire thing. But before we get into that, be sure to get subscribed because I am SuperDerek. I make thoughtful and thought-provoking videos for gamers who love RPGs, and if you are one of those people who love RPGs, there's a good chance that you too will love this book. A Guide to Japanese RPGs. Now, before I dive into this, I will tell you that this book was sent to me by Bitmap Books for purpose of this review. However, they do not have editorial review. They do not have the ability to view this video prior to it going out. They just sent it, no strings attached, hoping that I would review it. And, well, let me tell you, this absolute tome of a book is the book that I would have written if I were to have written a book. And that's a really weird statement for me to say, because I've never at any point felt like the need to write a book, but you always have that in the back of your mind, like, man, if I were to write a book about something, what would it be? It would be this book, for me personally. Obviously, I don't have the breadth of knowledge that went into this tome because this was sourced by several writers, because they had to do that in order to kind of split up their efforts. This talks about not every single JRPG ever, but almost. And that includes a ton that were never released outside of Japan. Again, if I were to have written a book, and if it were in its best form possible, I guess then it would have been this book. But I am but one human with one lifespan to play video games, and holy moly, this thing is solid, guys. Let me tell you, one of the things that I really liked about reading, at least in the very beginning, the intro, as they go over a lot of the introductory pages that detail what a JRPG is and how they came to be. It talks about a lot of the same stuff that I covered in How to RPG 101 and 102. They also made clear a position that I've been arguing for quite a while now, and that is what a JRPG is as a style as opposed to a country of origin denotation. And maybe we'll talk about that on another video of How to RPG, but it's interesting being on the same page as like this big publication talking about, the sliding scale of what a JRPG is, the RPG spectrum. And that's also something I've been talking about for years, but to have it laid out in a book like this, again, it's just like I said, if I were to have made a book, it would have been this one. And as I've been making my way through the How to RPG series, I've also often thought to myself of like, man, if I were to actually deliver a college course over video games or RPGs and JRPGs, this would be the textbook I would issue to my students. I'm not going to tell you that you need to buy it, of course. If you're just watching the videos of How to RPG, that is your own prerogative, but I would recommend it to anybody who's really looking into a way to find out more about really an unearthed world of JRPGs that we don't have access to even begin experiencing here in the West. I mean, ROMs and emulators will only get you so far when you don't speak Japanese. So the first bit of the book is talking about all that introductory stuff, all that prep, and then it starts diving into the individual series that really made a big impact on the genre itself. And then they start going into the individual one-off games that were released over the course of various systems by year. And it's a bunch of reviews, sometimes it's like 3 to 10 paragraph reviews and overviews of what to expect in various series. They also don't give you so much that it might spoil the game, at least what I've read. And I will say now that I haven't read this thing cover to cover because I really do not want to inadvertently plagiarize. That is something that I've been hyper aware of ever since I started my channel. So as a result of that, all of the RPG content that I used to love watching on a daily basis is something that I no longer feel like I'm able to do due to that hypervigilance. So anyways, what I've done is I've read through all of the reviews and overviews of the video games that I've already reviewed myself personally. That way, there's not really any risk of this flavoring my opinion and making me lean one way or the other. But what I do also appreciate is that in addition to the several paragraphs that they'll write about the various games, they'll also provide you with a little bit of a call out here on like the side that talks about what makes that game unique or special or interesting or otherwise, or if not, they'll tell you that as well. One of the things that I do want to show you real quick is, let's go ahead and just flip over to Chrono Trigger, because I feel like everybody has a pretty good understanding of what to expect from Chrono Trigger. So when you flip this page over to 210, you'll see a nice bit of artwork from within the game, a lot of the concept artwork within the game, and that's something that they do for each of these games in question here, which is really phenomenal. And then they give you these little call-outs to the side, these little captions that they use on pretty much every single game that they talk about. They have a little caption that gives you some extra little bit about, it's not very spoilery, it doesn't go in too far in depth, but if you just read even those, which I've done for a lot of the games that I haven't played, and just kind of want to get a feel for it, it'll tell you a little bit about it, enough to get you interested and to tell you what's special about it without telling you too much. So for instance, in the case of Chrono Trigger, it tells you a couple captions. The diverse cast of Chrono Trigger, each character associated with one of the time periods you visit, is one of the key reasons that it resonates so strongly. I feel like they do a really good job of telling you why things are special, why things are interesting in those captions. And if you want to know more, of course, you can read the 3 to 5 paragraphs that give you not necessarily an unbiased opinion, because I think everybody's opinions of video games are biased by their own self-experiences, right? But they do give you at least some reasoning. Like when I try to give a video game a review, I try to give you the reasons that I feel a certain way, and not just that yes, it's good or yes, it's bad, but here's why you might think it's good, here's why you might think it's bad. And they do so in the context of each of their previous releases as well, which is something that I also like to do in my episodes of the game collection. So they give you the context for an entire series as you're making your way through reading it, and they talk about, you know, why it was or why it wasn't a letdown or a benefit to the series. Honestly, I can't think of a really negative thing to say about the book. It is not cheap, but it's also not supposed to be cheap. This is a premium quality book, high quality printing, bound very nicely. This thing is solid. You know, this is definitely a premium kind of book. Textbooks, regular textbooks that they sell en masse, those things are expensive. This is essentially a textbook. It's going to be expensive just because of the nature of the process that goes into printing these things. But that said, if you don't have any need or desire for a physical collectible version, there is a PDF version that you can also buy directly from Bitmap Books. So again, this video was not seen by Bitmap Books, but I will tell you that I have only praise for everything that I've read so far in this book. And if you are the kind of person who loves RPGs, who loves to really dive deep into the things, the worlds that we have no access to experience because of our language barriers, this is the sort of book that I think a lot of us have been waiting for. It treats the series, it treats the genre with respect and care. It gets me. It feels like this book was made for me by me, but it was made for me by Bitmap Books and all of the various authors. Do be sure to check them out. I'll have links in the description, and if you're new here, do be sure to get subscribed, because again, I am SuperDerek. I make thoughtful and thought-provoking videos for gamers who love RPGs and books about RPGs, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day, everybody.